Alright, let's first rename this animation avatar mask to read spine, because I was constantly saying spline in the previous video, but of course it's spine. Alright, so we ended our last video with me talking about aiming over the shoulder and hiding the crosshair. So that's something we're going to do, and we're going to use states for it. So we're going to make states for the player and act accordingly to it from our different scripts. Okay, let's start with a new script in our player folder. Let's call this player state. Let's open it up. Are you there yet? Oh yeah. Okay. Now with play state open, we're gonna make some enums for it, and usually I make an enum inside the same class if it's immediately tied to the class. So the enums we're making right now are tied to the player state, so I'm making them in this class. Otherwise I would make a new class file for it. Okay, public enum, let's call this move state, move state, which will tell us the move states we have. So that should be walking, running, crouching, sprinting. I believe those are the move states we have. Let's also make an enum for our weapon state, which will tell us if we are firing or if we are idle, firing, aiming, and maybe also aimed firing. So if we are both aiming and firing at the same time. Yeah, alright, so in our player state class, let's make two public properties for move state and one public weapon state. Alright, now we need a reference to our input controller to see what kind of states we need to change to. So let's make a private input controller, and let's make this public so we can use it from our local player, from a game manager. Input controller get if input controller equals null is game manager game manager instance input controller. So we get it from the game manager. Return. The reason I'm using the game manager instead of our own input controller here instead of the game manager input controller is that I don't want to type it that long, you know. Okay, and now we need in the update function to check for our move states, or maybe even set our move states. So in our void update we check let's make a void set move state, and the default move state equals I believe we are running by default. So then we just check if we are sprinting. Input controller is sprinting. We say move state equals move state sprinting, and if we are walking, and last is if did I remove a bracket? No. If input controller is crouched, move state equals crouching. All right. And in the update, of course, we say set move state, and we're gonna do the same for the aim state. So void z aim state, or maybe it's weapon state. By default, our weapon state equals the weapon state idle. And if input controller let me see, fire 1, I think, yeah. So if we are firing, we say weapon state equals weapon state firing. Now we need to add a new property for our aiming, a new button for it. So let's go to the input controller. Let's make a new property. Let's call this fire 2. And here it is. Copy it over. Fire 2. And also get button fire 2, which is mapped to our right mouse button anyway. Okay. Now back to our player state. So we can check for the if input controller fire 2 weapon state equals to weapon state aiming. Now for the last one, if input controller fire 1 and input controller fire 2. So if it's both true, weapon state equals the aim firing. Yeah, that does what we need. So now let's move to Unity again. Select our player, and let's drag our player state to it. And now let's first see what it does. So if you look here, move state currently running, weapon state idle. If I hit the right mouse, oh, nothing happened. Oh, it's not doing anything. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, we are not. Are we? It should change. Oh yeah, there it is. I was moving, of course it stays running. And it's fire. It doesn't trigger the weapon state for firing, but it does for sprinting and for walking and also for crouching. Yeah. So the weapon state, oh yeah, we're not updating the weapon state, so we're not setting it. So let's set weapon state. Now if we are looking again, weapon state idle, firing, right click is mouse, so it's aiming. And if we both aim and alright, so that's what we want. Now let's first go for the camera to change when we hit the aim key. So let's open up our third-person camera, and let's see how we're gonna do it. Yeah, we're gonna make a new class. Let's call this camera rig or something, which will hold these properties. So we can add more camera rigs and change them based on the game state. So let's make a public vector 3 camera offset and a public float damping. Now before we changed it, let's first take like a quick look at the current values. So 0.7, 0.8 and 7. Okay, so by default it should be was 0.7, 0.8 minus 7, and our damping was 5. All right. So just a quick note. So yeah, this is of course capital because it's a public property. Now let's we need to make it system serializable, otherwise it won't show up in the inspector. And now let's remove this and say serialized field and camera rig, an array of camera rigs. No, not an array. Camera rig, and let's call this default camera. And let's make serialized field for our camera rig for our aim camera. Alright, my settings makes it like so. Let's keep it like this. Okay, so we got an aim camera, we got a default camera. And now, of course, we need to change this. So we make in our update, we say, oh no, first we need to get a reference to our player state. So let's, I believe we made it public. We have a local player. So camera rig, camera rig equals, let's make it first a default camera. By default, it's always the default camera. Now, we could check if the for the weapon state. So if local player, I thought we made it a public. Oh no, we have it. We only have it in our player state. We don't have it in our player. So let's. Maybe it's a nice idea to put it in our player as well. So let's open up our player. Let's copy over one property here. And let's change this around to player state. And just change the variables. And this should be get component player state. Now, because we are using this, we're going to make sure it's also a required component. Whenever we make a new player, we don't forget it. Required component, the player state, of course. And this should be the player state too. Okay, and then instead of making a private, make it a public player state. So now back in our third-person camera. Let me check here. We use our this is okay. Okay, back in our third-person camera. So if local player, and then we should have access to the player state, and then we can say if the weapon state equals aiming, then we want to change the camera, but not only when we're aiming, also or local player player state weapon state equals aimed firing. Then we change the camera rig to our aim camera. And now let's change our target position script to read camera rig camera offset. And here camera rig camera offset. Okay, and now also for the damping. Yeah, okay. So now if we let it compile again, in our main camera we see we have a default camera and our aim camera. Luckily I got these here, so it was 0.7, 0.8, -8 and 5, I think. -7.85, yeah. So let's get rid of this. I'm not entirely sure what we're gonna need here, so let's keep this at 0.7, maybe a little bit lower and maybe a little bit closer, and increase the damping so it will be faster to follow our player. So let's see what happens. There we go. If I hit the right mouse button, it will go to that camera spot, but we're not in the correct position. So let's make it a little bit more to the left, a little bit more distance. Just a matter of preference, I think. Even closer. Maybe a little bit more. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Five. Just fiddle around until you got something you like. You can see some clipping here, but we can change that. I mean, if we change the clipping planes to really close, it's gone. It will give us some distortion in the back if you're really using a big far plane, but for now it's okay. So let's move it a little bit more to the left. Not that much, even less. I'm just trying to find a good spot. Maybe something like this. Now, if we fire, we probably don't fire exactly at the crosshair. So we could adjust the crosshair a little bit to the left. So let's check the crosshair. Let's move a little bit to the left. To the yeah, this seems to be okay. Now a little bit lower too. A little higher and a little bit more to the left. Really depends where you're looking at. Oh, but okay, now you can see we're gonna fix this later on, the crosshair as well, because that's getting annoying. So 81 minus and 63 for now. Let's go back to our camera and copy our values for our, at least, and if you're satisfied with it, copy the values, copy component, and paste these values. All right. So the crosshair, I don't remember what we had, like 60, 80 or something, maybe 0.7. I'm not really sure. Let's check it. Fair enough. All right, so with that done, we have the we make use of our player state, but we're also going to make use of the player state because now when we are running, we can shoot, but when we sprint, it will go this way. So we're gonna, when we sprint, it will shoot all kinds of directions. So we will not allow the player to shoot when he's sprinting. Which is fairly easy to do right now. So if we open up our player shoot. And let's also make sure we get the component, require component type of. Well, it's also already tied to the player, but it doesn't hurt to put it here. Player state. Okay. Now we need a reference to our player state. No. Sorry. Now we have it. We have a public in our player state, so we could use it from our game manager. So let's move down to our let's see, update here. So we allow the player to switch weapons, but we do not allow the player to shoot when we are sprinting. So if player state, where does it? No. Now if game manager instance local player player state equals player state move state sprinting, we return. So why player state but move state? So if we are sprinting, we just skip out of the update function, so we cannot fire anymore. So let's check this. So now we can shoot. Now let's sprint. Now you are not able to shoot. Okay. Also, when we are sprinting, like with the mouse, we cannot shoot. Okay, that works. Now you still see a crosshair here when we are moving like this. Let's remove the crosshair when we are not holding our aiming button. So we only show the crosshair when we are aiming. So we probably need our crosshair script for that. Yeah. So also we still have the look height, which we are not using anymore. So let's go to a player and let's remove our look height here. We can remove the entire reference to the crosshair, by the way. So let's make sure we don't have any. No, nothing is using it. Okay, so now it's gone. Remove the look height here, and we can also remove these here. And whoops, like so. And then we just need to check for the we need a player reference. So let's make a private player state. It's not necessary. Of course, we got the same reference to our local player. So it should be if game manager instance local player state, and then we need the weapon state. If that equals to aiming, of course we also got the aim fire. So let's copy this over. Aim firing. We draw our cursor rectangle. What is it? Crosshair. So now there's no crosshair. I think we should add some crosshair, maybe a larger one, something like that, and then when we hit the right mouse it shows up. We could also make a state. Maybe that would be nice if we are crouched to lower the camera with us. So let's do that as well while we're at it. So in our third person camera, let's make a new camera rig for our crouched camera. Now we got one for our default, but we got also Let's make it a little bit different. Let's try this first. Public float crouch height. So the height of the camera when we are crouching. So we adjust the camera offset with crouch height when we are crouching. So this will be camera Y, and let's add the camera rig crouch height to it. Can we? Oh, no, of course, like so. Now let's first check what happens here. If we go to our main camera, crouch height is at 0. Now if I make this like 2, it will go up, and if I make it minus 0.5 or something like that, it will go a little bit lower. So when I'm yeah, I think that works. So let's make this minus 0.5 and it's minus 0.7 maybe. I'm not really sure. Okay, now when we change our camera to crouched, we're gonna add it. So instead of adding it directly, we're gonna check for our local player state, move state, that equals to crouching. We're gonna let's make it a little bit more easy to show you what we're doing here. Okay, so let's make a float target height. This will be our camera offset Y, and we're going to add an immediate if here, which is written like this. So if the local player state move state equals to crouching, then you do a question mark, which will have 2 values. This is the first one is if it's true. So if we are crouching, we say camera rig crouch height, and otherwise we say 0. Let's see. Does this the way we want? Like so. So if this is true, then it will take the crouch height, and otherwise it will take this one. And then we change our like so. Am I true? No. Like so. Okay, let's see. So now it will go down with us, and also here. This might be a little bit low. Let's first change our clipping plane to 0.1. Okay, so we need to add it up a little bit, or if you want it, you can keep it like this, but no, not entirely what I want. So let's make it a little bit less, maybe 0.5 as well. Yeah, I think this is okay. Well, you can change all the camera rigs you want based on the movement of the player. Yeah, so that's it for this movie. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next one.